Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. I am Luke Lipinski.
And I'm Doug Cannon.
On this week's episode, we eliminate some teams and try to figure out if anyone can slow down Jerome McGinley.
We'll also touch on the rapid decline of the Toronto Maple Leafs and how the Frozen Four will be frozen until April.
Wow. All that and more. Let's drop the puck on episode 35. Well, here we are again alongside Doug Cannon. I am Luke Lipinski. Doug,
Hi, Luke.
how's it going?
Going good, man. Nice cloudy day.
It is. It really is.
Which is unusual for us because we live in Arizona and we get 364.5 days of sunshine.
I got stuck behind a house on the way over today. Like it was a truck moving a house, and I was stuck behind it, so I got
A
around
real
it.
house or just a double wide?
Well, I mean, it wasn't like a real house. It was just, and he pulled it in front of me again, so I got stuck behind him twice.
Well, you can go around them.
I tried to go around him. It's a house. What am I going to do?
Honk.
Yeah, that really works well. So here we are. It is episode 35.
Yes, it is.
The game continues.
The game continues. Got a few numbers left, but
We've got 64 numbers left.
before we go,
Okay,
last week was episode 34,
that's true.
and I threw out Dominic Hasek.
You did.
And everybody's like, wait a minute. How can he be 34?
You threw me off.
Right?
And I tried to contest it afterwards.
How can he be 34 when Buffalo's going to retire his number 39, right?
Yes.
I am correct. He did wear number 34. He wore number 34 when he was with the Blackhawks, and he backed up Ed Belfour.
When he wasn't good, he wore number 34.
And he backed up Ed Belfour. He only played 25 games for the Blackhawks.
Okay.
He didn't wear 31 his first year with the Blackhawks because the then other backup goalie, Jacques Cloutier, wore 31.
Wow. Okay.
So Hasek took 34.
So here's
And he only did it for one season.
Yeah,
and he
so
played
exactly.
He played 5 games wearing number 34.
way to go.
So technically I was right.
Technically, you were right.
But career-wise, the number doesn't fit the Dominator, so I apologize.
You should apologize.
I was, though, technically correct.
Well, for those antics, when we get to 39, you can't use Hasek. How do you feel about that? Because to you, he's apparently
Well, his number should be
34.
retired by then.
Yeah, okay. That's good. Well, number 35, and I don't know if you're going to throw out like Mario Lemieux.
Well, there's only one
He wore
35.
35 and like Bantam or
I
something.
had to say that.
Yeah, and there's always only one. In this case, there might only be one. There's only one Hall of Famer that wore the number 35.
Okay, go. You
Tony
go.
Esposito.
And that's who I have.
I had a...
It's hard to argue, Tony.
He's the only Hall of Famer, so there really is no argument. But I had a listener email in with J.S. Jaguar. He's had a pretty good career
Oh, that's
for
a good
himself.
one.
Yeah.
I got another one for you, though.
All right. Dominic Hasek.
No, he wore 34, 31, and 39.
Okay.
No, never wore 35. No. USA hockey player.
I have absolutely no idea where you're going with this. Mike Richter?
Yes.
Oh, well, apparently I have the
Yes.
exact idea. He was good.
He was listed as the number 3 all-time New York Ranger in the book 100 Ranger Greats.
You read the book 100 Ranger Greats?
I have a weird life.
Okay.
Do you remember the Saturday Night Live skit? If it's not Scottish, it's crap.
Yeah, I do remember that, actually.
Well, in my house, if it's not hockey, it's crap.
I can get behind that. That's fair. The 100 greatest Rangers, are any of them from the last 15 years other than Lundqvist?
No, Mikey Richter, man, he did a lot
Yeah.
as a USA hockey player.
Him and Brian Leach, I remember them. They were just dominant.
He took the Rangers to the Cup.
Well, yeah, that's true.
He won a gold medal in the '96 World Cup, and he won a silver in the 2002 Olympics.
You know, based on a previous show, I know Curtis Joseph's save percentage in the 1996 World Cup, thanks to you.
Well, I try to help out where I can.
Yeah, in the most strange places. All right, so here we are. It's opening day of baseball. That's what we're going to talk about, right?
Not this kid.
Okay. Playoff
You got to
race.
remember, I'm a Toronto fan.
Oh, well, yeah. I'm surprised you even made it up this morning. Toronto Maple Leafs, I guess let's start there. Now, the one kind of issue with doing a podcast is if you're doing anything time sensitive, I mean, when we're going to finish recording this, people aren't going to hear it probably till tonight, tomorrow morning, whatever. Stuff could happen.
Correct.
Between now and then. We did this show last week, and we talked about how Toronto only has 80 points. They had lost 4 in a row.
Right.
So where are they now?
And they have 80 points.
Oh, that's interesting. But now they've lost 8 in a row. Yeah, so things have changed.
Yeah, I looked at this last night, and I'm like, in the East, you have going into last night's schedule of games, you had Detroit to Toronto, Washington, Columbus, all with 80 points, fighting for the 7th and the 8th spot, the two wild card spots. Detroit beats Toronto. Columbus beat who did Columbus play last night?
Columbus, well, they just lost to Pittsburgh.
But they won in overtime
yeah, they
last
won
night.
last night. You're right. Okay. So they got 2 points.
So now Columbus and Detroit are tied with 82 points. Columbus in the 7th spot, Detroit in the 8th spot, and Washington and Toronto are in the 9th and the 10th spot, respectively, with 80 points.
Well, we talked about this last
That's
week.
still only 2 points out.
It is. And 2 weeks ago, Toronto was playing Tampa Bay in the 2-3 matchup in the Atlantic Division. And they looked like they were pretty much locked in. I'm not locked in, but they were pretty comfortably in there. I mean, we were talking about Columbus maybe fighting for a playoff spot if Detroit came back and made a push, which they've done. Washington was right there in the mix.
Yeah.
But now Toronto is not only now fighting for a playoff spot, they're on the outside looking in, and they've played more games than everybody else.
That's the part I don't like, as a fan, is that time is ticking, and it's like you've just lost 8 in a row, and I'm hoping that the law of averages kick in.
Well, you've only got 6 games left. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, come on, boys. Let's get it together here.
As we touched on last week, it's one thing to kind of be slipping up this time of year and to know there's teams trying to catch you. I mean, if you have any sort of losing streak, even a 3-game losing streak at this point in the season, teams are going to be on your tail. That's just the way it's going to be. But when we talked about last week, Toronto had dropped 4 straight, and they were looking over their shoulder at Detroit.
Right.
Well, Detroit is making their push. I mean, they're in the top 8 now. They have 82 points. Columbus has 82 points. Washington has 80 points. Toronto has 80 points. But the thing is, the Red Wings, Blue Jackets, and Capitals all have 8 games left. Toronto has 6. And just pure momentum. I mean, Toronto's at a point now, you touched on last week, what it's like to be in Toronto when that team isn't winning. Like, we're to the point now where Dion Phaneuf is calling into radio shows to defend his team.
Yeah, well, we talked about it last week as well, and it's like when you don't have a number 1 goalie, I guess this is what happens.
I guess. There's going to be one Canadian team in the playoffs.
I don't understand how you can play as well as they had this team playing, and then just all of a sudden, what causes the lug nuts to fall off and the wheels fall off with it?
I mean, they've got their next game is against Calgary, who you would think would be, okay, here's kind of our slump-busting team. It's Tuesday, so they've got a few days. But Calgary's playing really good hockey for who they are right now. I mean, they've been beating a lot of teams.
Well, we've mentioned it. I mean, Calgary's roster's playing for jobs next year.
And they're playing well.
It's like tryouts, right? They're looking for a roster spot.
So I don't know if that's who you want to play as Toronto. And then after that, you've got Boston. I mean, you want to be in a position where Boston can deliver the knockout blow again?
No. I mean, I think for Toronto to make the playoffs at this point, they've got to win out. You've lost 8 in a row. Now you got to win 6 in a row.
Well, how about this? They've got to win a game. I mean, you can't make the playoffs by losing.
That's true.
Detroit is potentially going to prove you wrong here. You realize that?
Well, maybe not. Maybe Washington will make a nice push for me and knock Detroit out.
I just still love the fact that Detroit's going to prove you wrong, and they're going to do so because your own team let you down again, which, as I said before the show, is giving me insight into what it must be like to be a Maple Leafs fan.
It's very hard.
Eastern Conference race, though, very, very intriguing. Those are the 4 teams fighting for 2 spots. New Jersey not out of it yet. They are 0-10 in the shootout this year. They're 3 points back of Toronto. Figure if they won 3 of those, they'd be okay.
I just don't see New Jersey making a big enough push. I just don't see it happen.
Because of the teams involved, I agree with you. Detroit, now that they're in, I can't see them letting this up.
And Columbus, for the longest time, has been in a position where everybody's just, it's Columbus. It's Columbus. It's Columbus. They've got a lot of talent on that team, and they do have a number 1 goaltender.
Yeah, and of all these teams, they clearly have the best goaltender.
Right. So with the momentum and the push that they're making, and they have one heck of a good coach.
I watched them play Pittsburgh on Friday, and Bobrovsky wasn't even in net. It was Curtis McElhinney, and the Penguins ended up winning 2-1. But I mean, Columbus they're a hard-working team, which is not the sort of team you want to play this time of year.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview the other day, and they were talking about McElhinney and how his game has improved playing behind Bobrovsky. And the key point that they focused on was he's developing Bobrovsky's work ethic.
There you go.
And so now your backup goalie is developing your number one goalie's work ethic, and there you go.
I will always be mystified as to why Philadelphia went out and poured a bunch of money into Ilya Bryzgalov's back pocket and then got rid of Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky wasn't bad when he was in Philadelphia. I'm not gonna get on them for thinking that Bryzgalov. I mean, he was coming off a couple great seasons in Phoenix. I'm not gonna get on them for thinking that he would be an upgrade. But why get rid of Bobrovsky? It wasn't costing any money.
Right.
Anyway, Philadelphia Rangers looks like that will almost certainly be a first-round matchup. I think we can pretty much lock that in because I don't see either one of them catching Pittsburgh.
I don't see that happening.
And
even as banged up as Pittsburgh is, I don't see that happening.
Pittsburgh has to win like one more game to have the division wrapped up. So Rangers, Philadelphia, we're talking about a nice series just fueled by hate. There you go. And over in the Atlantic, it's now looking like Montreal, Tampa Bay. So we have pretty much two series that you can essentially lock in.
I think so. This is going to be fun to watch. Montreal's on a roll.
Montreal's won 8 of their last 10 and 5 in a row.
Right. Yeah, they're on a big roll right now.
Very quietly on a roll, too. You kind of indicated this last week. You don't think they get the credit they should get.
Right. And they don't. And they have a lot. They have great goaltending. They have some solid D.
They added Thomas Vanek.
And now they're adding some points to the scoreboard. So
Max Pacioretty has 35 goals this year.
And nobody's talking about
That's a quiet 35 goals.
It's a very quiet 35.
Montreal also, as I kind of alluded to, is carrying the torch for all of Canada. Can you remember a year where only one Canadian team made the playoffs? Now, Toronto's not out, and technically Vancouver isn't out yet either. But,
whatever.
But at most, Detroit and Toronto are going to make the playoffs.
Yeah,
And
it's not going to be a good.
not Detroit. Montreal and Toronto.
Not going to be a good playoff year for the Canadian teams. That's for sure.
I just put Detroit in Canada. How do you think they feel about that?
So in the East, it's funny because Boston has clinched the division. Pittsburgh has clinched a playoff position, and that's it for the East at this point.
Well, all year long, the talk has kind of been those are the two teams. Which one comes out of the East?
But we fly over to the West Coast. St. Louis, Colorado, Chicago, Anaheim, San Jose have all clinched.
I'm sorry. I was just looking at Boston's schedule trying to find the last time they lost in game in regulation. It was March 1st. They're 14-0-1 in their last 15 games. So that'll clinch you a division. Yeah, St. Louis, Colorado, Chicago. For all the predictions that you will bring up and say that I was wrong at the start of the year, they're all lies. But this is one I was a little bit off on. I didn't think the Central Division would be nearly this tough. From top to bottom, right now, it's the best division in hockey.
Oh, absolutely. I don't disagree with that. I mean, you look at the top two teams, 107 points, 100 points. Third team's got 99 points.
The third team is the defending Stanley Cup champs. They're third in their own division.
With 99 points.
Yeah, it's not like they're playing bad. So, Colorado, Chicago, we've known that was going to be a first-round matchup for a while now.
I mean, look at the point totals. I mean, other than Boston in the East, you look at the point totals in the West. 107, 100, 104, 103, 99, 94. The eighth seed has got 84 right now.
It's unreal. The way the season started off, the West was just so much better than the East, and the head-to-head record. Yeah, but then it kind of felt like it was leveling out. But yeah, there's 5 teams with more than 100 points in the standings as we record this, and 4 of them are in the West.
Right.
So Colorado, Chicago is going to be a potentially epic series in the first round.
I can smell it.
No.
That's an upset.
No. Whoa, really?
Yeah.
What does that smell like?
I see an upset right there.
What's the upset? Colorado's the higher
Stanley
seeded team.
Cup champs are gone.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But I do think that that's going to be an entertaining series.
Can you guys smell?
No, I can't. I absolutely
Scratch
cannot.
Your Sniff podcast.
Wow, that's the wave of the future right there. over in the that should be the name of the show, Scratch and Sniff Podcast. People would tune in and be like, "What's this?" And we'd just be talking hockey.
Scratch your radio. There it is. You can smell it. It's an upset.
Anaheim retakes over first in the Pacific Division from San Jose by a point. Anaheim's been scuffling lately. Yeah, I don't know if I'd be too proud of your Anaheim's going to the Stanley Cup prediction. They're basically playing 500 hockey right now.
They're just making me feel better right now.
Maybe. I don't know. So San Jose and Los Angeles would be a series if the season ended today, but that's going to change.
I had a conversation with a coworker the other day.
All right.
And we were looking at the West.
Okay.
And he turned to me and says, we were talking playoffs. And,
so even at work, you're talking about hockey?
Always.
Okay.
And he goes, I think we need to watch out for LA. I said, what? He goes, yeah, that's my dark pick. And then I started looking at it, and I'm like, ooh, I got a bad feeling that they're going to upset a couple of apple carts.
They could take somebody out. They're not winning the Stanley Cup this year.
I didn't say that.
Okay. Is there anybody in the West that would surprise you if they won a series? There's not anybody.
No. Well, yeah, Edmonton.
Is there anybody that's in it in the West that would surprise you if they won a series? Can you go one show without piling on poor Edmonton?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're not. So, LA, San Jose, Anaheim. Right now, Phoenix is the 8th seed in the Western Conference. They're dangerous.
Then they got Dallas right on their heels.
Dallas is dangerous. Minnesota nearly let their entire playoff cushion slip away. They got a win last night, but that's a team that if they're playing good hockey could be tough. I'm a little worried about Minnesota, though. I've gone back and forth on this. I don't know about their goaltending in a 7-game series.
Yeah. Because you've got Ilya, and then you got Kemper backing him up.
Yeah, and Ilya's track record in the playoffs isn't necessarily fantastic.
He's one of those, I mean, it's kind of a non-statement, but he's one of those guys, unless he's in that groove, you don't know what goalie you're going to get what night.
Yeah. And that's not meant as a knock on Minnesota. Look, if they were in the East, I'd probably have them in the Eastern Conference Finals. But in the West, they're going to get St. Louis or Anaheim in the first round or San Jose. It's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, so from here on out till June, I mean, we're probably just going to have to keep an eye on all of this. I think it's really funny that 5 teams have clinched a playoff position in the West, and you've only got 2 teams that are guaranteed a playoff position in the East.
And one that doesn't look like they're guaranteed any sort of playoff position.
Thank you again.
You don't know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yes, I do. I can tell by that smirk on your face.
I'm just happy.
You're tuned into the Hockey Podcast. Follow us on Twitter @HockeyPodcast for even more hockey news.
#do it.
Segment 2, Doug.
Follows number 1.
It does on most shows.
And it comes before number 3.
Well, I don't know. I'm not ready to make that sort of commitment.
Okay.
So now we're going to look at the teams that have officially been eliminated. What do we got? 2 weeks left in the regular season, right? 2 weeks from today it ends.
Mm-hmm. April 13th
That's
is the
kinda sad.
final day.
I don't want it to end.
Neither do I, but we'll go into the playoffs.
Ooh, I do want that to start.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we'll go into the playoffs.
Here's some teams that won't be going to the playoffs.
See, but my wife doesn't want that to happen.
No, but she knew what she got herself into.
Yeah, that's true.
There's no sympathy here.
Okay.
So I think that we at least need to kind of take one last look at the teams that are out, like officially eliminated, maybe come up with what you and I are looking for from them in the offseason, or just what their biggest question is, or what the biggest question is you have for them. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
So and it would be good if it's just kind of like one singular question.
Okay.
I say that because we're starting with Edmonton. I don't have
I
a
got
singular question for
one
them.
word.
What are you doing?
Yeah, that's 3 words.
Why? Let me see if I can guess your word. Well, no, I probably shouldn't do that. Go ahead.
Stability. This team needs stability. Needs stability in the front office. Needs stability on the bench. We talked about it briefly last week.
Feels like last year. It was a long week.
I think they should bring Dallas back.
The whole city? Or the coach?
The coach.
Okay, whatever works for him.
Him and I on a first-name basis.
Oh, well, that's nice for you. Yeah, we did mention that, and then I think that.
But I think that's what this team needs. This team is so young, and I would say goaltending, but I kind of like the 2 goaltenders they have.
I do too. They need to add some sort of defense.
Yeah.
So much is made of the fact that they've had these high picks every year, and it's not working. Their high pick from last year was Darnell Nurse, and he didn't play with them this year.
Right.
I mean, they're actually developing him down in junior still. So maybe he comes up next year. Maybe they can add a guy in free agency. I go back to my question being simply, what are they going to do with this year's pick? And not with the sort of thought process of who are they going to take with this year's pick. My question is, do they actually make a pick or do they trade it?
I think they trade it. I think this team has enough offensive power that they do need somehow, some way to shore up the blue line.
So you got to find a team that's loaded up with defense, basically. The established defense, not stocked with a good farm system, but actually established defensemen that want a top pick.
Another top pick is not going to help you. A top pick is not going to join you for another 3-4 years, depending on the pick. There's not that many McKinnons coming out of the draft.
No, but, I mean, look, McKinnon is the best number 1, number 2, number 3 pick we've seen in the last few years. Even if he joined the Oilers right now, I don't know that they're a playoff team. I don't think any one young player that they could pick this summer that comes in, even if he plays at 18, 19 years old next year, I don't know that that's going to be enough to get them where they want to go. So you do run that risk of, do you want to trade that pick away if it's 1 or 2? And
yeah, I mean, even if Darnell Nurse comes and plays next year, I don't think that's enough. I mean, look at Seth Jones over in Nashville. Great player. I love watching the kid. But the impact wasn't there, really.
No, in Nashville. Well, and Nashville lost their goalie for most of the season.
Sure.
But, I mean, Edmonton seems like it took a step back this year. It was not a fun scene up there.
We both didn't think Edmonton was going to be where they are at the start of the season. Just because they are young, they are quick, they are fast, they are talented. I thought they were going to do a lot better than they did this season. I think they need some kind of stability with the organization, and then the other key to me would be to shore up that blue line. Because I don't think the 2 goaltenders that they're running with right now are that bad.
No, and they both came over this year, too.
Sure,
so they
sure.
haven't been established. I just,
Again,
you run that risk, you trade that pick that, say, Sam Reinhart ends up being some great player in 3 or 4 or 5 years, but the Oilers have gone down this path of taking these guys. Taylor Hall's a very good player.
Nail Yakupov.
No.
I rest my case.
I
mean, you roll the dice.
It's a conversation stopper.
You roll the dice either way when it comes to, well, he could be good down the road. The thing I think of is you finished last in the Western Conference. Your fans are paying a lot of money to come see you play. They don't want to see you finish the season with 59 points.
Well, I mean, they've got 61 now. Not enough.
It was a hypothetical
All right.
comment.
It was almost right on, actually.
The fans want to see you win. I'm not saying that you have to win the Stanley Cup, but fans want to see you win. Fans don't want to see you at the bottom of the pile every season.
The most disappointing thing for Oilers fans has to be that there doesn't seem to be progress. I mean, you are sold with the sales pitch of, we're going to rebuild, and I thought the fans were really good about that. I mean, to get a whole fan base to kind of buy into a rebuild is not easy to do. They go out there, they get the high pick, they get another high pick, they get another high pick, and for a while there, it seemed like they had bottomed out and they were getting a little bit better, but now they've plateaued, and if anything, they're going the wrong direction. I don't think they will trade that high pick, but if there's a team that's up there that has established defensemen, you get a contender that's like, hey, we can add a top 2 pick too.
Well, I mean, you
Helps
trade
everybody.
your top pick for a lower pick and a player.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right.
No, you don't just you don't
Right.
have no pick.
Right. So I mean, and then then there's their Alberta brother. That's actually the same thing.
They're technically not out of it.
I know that. That's your little asterisk beside this. Mathematically,
They're still mathematically alive.
but I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, it would
Do
be
you
the greatest.
think it's going to happen?
It's not. Math isn't about what you think is going to happen, Doug. It's about raw numbers and science. Calgary has 69 points. As we
Thank you,
record
Sheldon.
this. As long as they win every game the rest of the way, and I think every other team in the NHL somehow loses every game, Calgary could sneak in.
Yeah. But they're in the same boat as Edmonton. They're promising rebuilding and not moving forward. The progress, or as the people in Alberta would say, the progress is not there.
Oh, well, a little Canadian on Canadian attack right there.
It wasn't an attack. It was an observation.
Oh, all right. A friendly observation. Calgary is 15-9 in their last 24 games. They are actually, who would you rather be right now, Flames fan or Oilers fan? Because Flames fan, you're in year 1 of the rebuild. Oilers fan, you're like 38 of the rebuild.
Wow.
But Calgary is showing some heart. 15-9 that's not a bad record at all over a 24-game stretch. I mean, that's a third of the season almost, and they've played some good teams in there.
So my question is, where was that earlier?
Well, they knew they were.
Where was that heart earlier?
Well, it
That
wasn't
heart,
there.
that 15-9 is there because you've got guys on a roster that want to come back next year.
Okay. Well, if they play like this, they can come back next year.
Yeah, but why didn't they do it at the start of the season, the middle of the season, throughout the season?
They're not as good as the other teams.
Listen, if you can show me that you can have that kind of performance, then it was always there, and you just chose not to do it.
You turned their 15-9 run around on them.
I did.
That's wow. My question for Calgary is, what do they do with?
Because if I'm a Calgary fan, I'm sitting there going, "What? Why weren't you playing like this at the start of the season? Why are you playing now?"
No, I'd be more just shocked that they're doing this now.
Ugh, I'd be frustrated. I'd be very angry.
Calgary was supposed to be the worst team in the NHL this year.
Well, they're second.
They're second worst in the West. So we haven't even got to the East yet.
I know.
My question, though, is Mike Camilleri is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. And despite the fact that he ran out on the ice the other night without blades on his skates, he's having a really good year.
That's embarrassing.
It's hilarious.
That's like stepping on the ice with skate guards on.
That's what I thought happened at first, because you know how they sprint out onto the ice. So he sprints out, and he doesn't have blades, so he instantly falls down.
Have you ever done the sock tape trick?
And just slides, yes. And it's quite hilarious.
It is hilarious. That's very funny.
Everybody wins.
I was coaching a tournament once, and I saw a official step on the ice, and it was the referee, and the 2 linesmen are standing there, and they're watching him, and they know he hasn't taken his skate guards off.
Yeah, and they just don't even say anything.
They don't say a word. He steps on the ice, and then they laugh.
Well, yes, that's what you do in a situation like that. It's worse when you kept your own skate guards on. You just look like an idiot. But if somebody puts the sock tape on there,
yeah, that's awesome.
it's brilliant. Hockey players are so just ingenious. So that's my question, Camilleri. He's been playing very good hockey. He's been really pretty solid player his whole career. But if I'm Calgary and I'm in a full rebuild, I would have traded him.
Somebody will pick him up.
Well, or maybe he resigns with Calgary. I don't know.
I don't know.
But if you were going to do that, then why wouldn't you just trade him and have him come back and resign? I don't fully understand what they're doing. I just know they're playing better hockey. Eastern Conference, 2 teams officially eliminated.
Buffalo.
Okay, so Buffalo, my question is, what are they going to do with all the picks they got for the Thomas Vaneks and the Matt Molsons and the Ryan Millers? As long as they have a plan, if I'm a Sabres fan, my biggest question is, are we going in a specific direction? I love the pickup of Corey Conacher off waivers. I told you that before.
Sure.
Before anybody had claimed him.
Here's another front office that I'm confused with.
All right. Well, I mean, these are all teams at the bottom of the standings. You're not going to be able to make a whole lot of sense out of it.
No, I mean, sitting there with 49 points. Ouch.
Yeah, but Buffalo and Calgary, I'll give a little bit of a pass to. They knew this was a rebuild. They were supposed to be down here this year. And Calgary in particular maybe should have done this a couple of seasons ago, but at least now they seem fully committed to it. Buffalo, give them credit. They know what they are this year. Fully committed to just gutting this roster, seeing who they have, and then acquiring a bunch of picks, which they did.
Well, again, they better get their act together, coaching-wise, front office-wise, because if you're going to be making changes like that, you've got to have guys that are committed to the plan.
So do you like Ted Nolan as the coach for the next few years? Because it looks like that's what we got.
I'm a Ted Nolan fan. I've always been a Ted Nolan fan. And I think that, you look at the Olympics and what he did with the Olympics.
With Latvia.
I'm still trying to piece it in my head how he got there, but
Latvia, a little-known fact, they are known as the Buffalo of Europe.
Really?
No,
Oh.
I just made that up. You just didn't seem into talking about Buffalo, so I had to throw out some lies.
No, I'm a big Ted Nolan. I've always been a Nolan fan, and I've always thought he's always gotten the short end of the stick, and I think as a coach, he's proven himself. Again, though, but you have to be committed. The front office has to be committed to him. Give him a chance. Don't go halfway through the 14-15 season and say, okay, well, you're not winning enough. We're going to find somebody else. This just doesn't fly, especially if you're rebuilding.
I think if Buffalo hits with their draft picks, they'll be back in contender status in the Eastern Conference, at least contending for a playoff spot with the Washingtons and Columbuses of the world by, 2016? I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
Well, they need some goaltending.
Well, yeah, now they do. And the final team that is already out of it, the Florida Panthers, kind of a weird one. I mean, this is a team that won their division, 18 months ago? Not even 2 years ago, they won their division. Now, that was the worst division maybe in the history of hockey, and it has now been absorbed into other better divisions. But for Florida to be where they are, probably a little disappointing for their fans. They had to make a coaching change at the start of the season. They do now have Roberto Luongo, though, and he's signed for quite some time. And as we've seen, if you get tired of him, you can't trade him. I don't think they're going to get tired of him. They now have a goalie for the next few years that can keep them in games. My biggest question for them, what happened to Jonathan Huberdeau this year? Rookie of the year last year, a lot of upside, and just a very mediocre sophomore season.
The old sophomore jinx.
So does he bounce back from that like Matt Duchene did? Or does he kind of just – he's not – when you're on a team that is constantly losing and you're a young player, I think it's tougher to get out of that sophomore slump. I think it's easier to fall into it because you're around a team that at a certain point has – I don't want to say accepted losing, but they're getting used to it. And so now both of his 2 years in the NHL, he's just been around a lot of losing. I think it's harder for him to look around and say – like Matt Duchene in Colorado, this is a team that can make the playoffs. I have to get my act together. And he did, and look how he's a great player now.
But he was also surrounded by terrific young players. I mean, Huberdeau's...
He's got Barkov.
Well, he's the leading scorer on Florida is Scotty Upshaw.
And how many points does he have, Doug?
35.
Not goals.
35 points.
35 points.
He has 14 goals.
What does Ovechkin have? 48 goals?
Goals. Right.
Yeah. That's.
I mean, the Phoenix Coyotes have Keith Yandel. He has 51 points. He's a defenseman. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Coyotes have like 9 guys with 40 or more points.
Right. So, I mean, the whole roster's in pretty bad shape. You know, young guys, you're right. I mean, that whole losing vibe is hard to shake, man, especially a young guy still trying to establish himself. You know, it's one thing to be in a league and you play on a mediocre team, so you've got a balance between wins and losses and stuff. And, you know, 3 years, 4 years down the road, you get on to a roster that's not having a lot of success. You can kind of deal with the losing end of that. But when you start off, that's all you know.
And we're seeing that in Edmonton.
Right.
And that's what would concern me if I was an Oilers fan more and more is –
which goes back to the stability, right? You got to have that stability. And you're right. You know, now they have Luongo in Florida. You got your starting point to start building out.
And maybe that's the biggest benefit Luongo brings to that team. He's been to the Stanley Cup before. Mm-hmm. So on some level, he can say, look, this is what it takes to not get to the Stanley Cup, but to win hockey games in this league. And he's the key.
He's been there. He's been a captain, so he knows how to conduct himself in the room.
He's been a backup to Corey Schneider for no reason.
So I think that...
Yeah, those are pretty solid thoughts on
you like that thought? You know where I went? You know where my brain just went?
Absolutely no idea.
My brain just
Frank
went...
Zappa?
No, it just... Not today. It went to number 35 again.
We already discussed that.
I know. I don't know why.
All right. I'm going to move the show along to the men's ice hockey tournament that we kind of previewed a little bit, very briefly last week. But as we sit here now, this tournament moves so quickly. We start with 16 teams on Friday. We're already down to 6.
That's why I was thinking 35.
Why?
Corey Schneider wears number 35, and he picked it because of Mike Richter. It was a little nugget that's been sitting in the back of my brain.
All right, maybe we'll get rid of that game. Maybe you may have killed the game once and for all. So here's who's left.
Okay.
We've moved on to college hockey.
I know, we're at the Frozen Four.
Care to join us for this part? Okay. So Union is in the Frozen Four. Union College out of New York. North Dakota is in the Frozen Four as well.
Usual suspect at the Frozen Four.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're probably going to be playing another usual suspect.
Well, we're getting to that point where a lot of these teams left are usual suspects. Minnesota plays St. Cloud State. That is today. The winner will play North Dakota. And then University of Massachusetts Lowell will play Boston College also today. Winner of that will play Union in the Frozen Four.
University of Massachusetts Lowell have fun playing Boston College.
Boston College looked extremely impressive in their game against Denver.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough game to.
This tournament,
I mean, that's why we play the games, right?
Yeah.
That's why you're in a tournament.
single elimination. Love single elimination.
But I don't know. Boston College is a pretty strong team.
Well, I like that this year the tournament, as you touched on last week, is on ESPNU. It's been really easy to find every time there's a game. So I've watched bits and pieces of a lot of these games, as I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
So if you have impressions on any specific team, let me know. But the one I got to see the most of was Boston College Denver, because I wanted to see a couple players specifically on Denver, and I wanted to see Johnny Gaudreau, who I haven't watched since the World Juniors 2 years ago.
Right.
He had 3 goals and 3 assists in the game, so he's doing fine for himself.
And it's disappointing because in that game, Denver only scored 2 goals, and that's just not Denver hockey.
No.
It's not.
Well, and they were never – I mean, Boston College scored 25 seconds into the game.
Yeah, it was 6-1 after the first.
So if I had to pick a team that's going to win based on what I've seen, I would go Boston College all the way. As you said, it's single elimination. That's why you play the games. Union has looked really good in their 2 games too, but I didn't get to watch as much of them.
That'll be a good matchup. I mean, I think Boston will make the Final Four. So then going up against Union, that's a 2 versus 3.
Plus, they have all this momentum from the way they're playing, and they only have to wait 3 months before the Frozen Four, right?
What is that?
I don't know.
I mean, we start March 28th, and the Final Four is not till April 10th.
But it's not just that we start March
It's hard
28th.
enough to find college hockey to enjoy.
Now take 2 weeks off.
That will take 2 weeks off. We're in this momentum. We're in the Final Four tournament. I'm into it. Hold that thought. We'll be back after 2 weeks.
If maybe they're taking an Olympic break.
That's just, I can't say that's a nasty word.
It's
just, I don't get, it has to do, and I'll check it and we'll come back to it, but it's ESPN's TV programming.
Okay, but
because
sure
every
right.
single game is on ESPN, whether it's ESPN, ESPN2, or ESPNU.
I'm sure you're probably right. But if I were programming a TV station, we've jumped. There was 4 games on the 28th. There was 6 games on the 29th, correct? And there's going to be 2 on the 30th. Like, we just crammed all these games into 3 days.
Right.
Just get them all done so we can hurry up and get to the championship in 2 weeks.
I don't get that.
I would have had, if we were going to wait this long, I would have had 2 games on Friday, 2 games on Saturday, 2 games. I mean, I would have dragged this out. If you're trying to get people to watch.
Right. I would have had the first round this weekend, the second round next weekend.
Yeah.
Right?
It would have been like the NBA playoffs where it's like we're going to play the first quarter of the game on Monday.
Right.
We're going to take a 3-day break and then get to halftime on Thursday.
I just, as a hockey fan, it's hard enough to get coverage. And then when you do get coverage, especially for the Frozen Four, which is like, all the basketball fans, they got their Final Four and they're whooping it up right now. But Frozen Four to me is a big deal. I love watching college hockey. And then I don't understand the scheduling of the tournament.
I would just say in general, from the players and coaches' perspective, we're sitting here talking about how great Boston College looked, and let's just assume they do beat UMass Lowell.
Very good point.
All their momentum's gone. Actually, maybe it works in their favor because Union seems to be the team with all the momentum right now, and Boston College has been the number 2 team in the country anyway.
Right.
So you would assume BC has all that talent. It's going to still be there in 2 weeks. A team like Union that's just playing very good hockey right now, you mess with the integrity of the game when you take that long off.
I mean, North Dakota was done yesterday.
Yeah, and we'll see him in
2 weeks.
We'll see him pretty much when the NHL regular season wraps up.
Correct.
You're listening to The Hockey Podcast. Feel free to email comments or questions to the show at our email address, thehockeypodcast@gmail.com.
Final segment, news and notes.
Our favorite segment, or at least mine. I love this
I
segment.
don't know. My favorite segment might be the area between the segments. That's where the magic, the podcast magic happens.
All the stuff we can't repeat.
Yes. So we got a lot of news and notes. I'm going to fire some stuff at you real quick so we can get through these. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Phil Kessel, X-rays on his left foot because he blocked a shot in that game against Detroit on Saturday.
Well, at least one Leaf's playing.
Hopefully he's still playing. I will say this: I haven't written Toronto off because I'm not a Toronto fan. But if Phil Kessel is unable to go,
they're done.
He might be in some trouble. So he might be able to play the next game. Who knows? But maybe just precautionary. What else we got here for you? Ryan O'Reilly. I gave you this stat, didn't I?
Mm-mm.
Okay, Ryan O'Reilly has had the greatest stat in the NHL. I don't know what award he's going to win this season. I would assume the Lady Byng. That's probably the only one he has a chance to win. I want to get his exact total.
He's that nice of a guy, is he?
Well, he had 0 penalty minutes all season until last night. My stat was ruined. So for the year, and this Ryan O'Reilly is a player. I mean, he's not.
Was it a major or a minor?
It was 2 minutes for a broken stick.
Oh, you're kidding me.
That's how his streak ends. How ridiculous is that?
Come on, the officials know he's got 0 PIMs.
Well, they should have, but
So
they don't listen.
what's
to the show
rule around a broken stick?
I haven't seen the play where he got the penalty, but if your stick's broken, you
have to drop it.
And I don't think he did. So that's how.
Oh, he traveled like in basketball. You went 2 extra steps with the stick in his hand.
Well, in basketball, it's 7 extra steps, but yes. So Ryan O'Reilly, 58 points this season, 26 goals, 32 assists. He's played in every game, so it's not like we're talking about a guy that played 3 games.
You know what?
This
If
season.
you really think about it, that's amazing.
It's very amazing.
Up until last night, this guy's got 58 points. You said
58 points, 0 penalty minutes.
that's Lady Byng material.
Unreal. Well, yeah, it should be a lock. If you finish the season with 0 penalty minutes and you're a contributor during the game, I mean, this is a guy
58 points. Yeah,
plays 20 minutes a night. It's not like he's just like some scrub.
And then, see, now you're just layering in on 20 minutes a night, and he has 0 PIMs.
You would think just by dumb luck you would get a couple penalties or something. I mean, Pavel Datsyuk gets penalties.
Well, even with the stupid clearing the puck over the glass or the worst rule, interference, because it's never called correctly.
Oh, geez, here we go.
But it's not. It's just not. That's a penalty where almost anybody on the ice can get.
Have you ever watched a hockey game with you? Because every single, if there's nothing going on, every 30 seconds, that should be interference. And then why isn't that interference? Well, that's technically interference.
Are you saying I'm wrong?
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just asking if you've ever watched a game with you.
Well, if you're going to have a rule, have a rule. And at least call it consistency. Consistency? Consistently.
I would call it consistently, but however. You asked me last week if there was anything I would change in the NHL.
Right.
And I said that I would change the over-the-glass rule. There's one other thing I would definitely change. I want the home team wearing white.
Yes.
This isn't a news or a note. I want the home team wearing white.
And it should be that way.
Why did we go away from that? I want to see the visiting team's colors when they come to town.
Because Gary Bettman thought it was creative.
Football does it this way, too. The NFL, the home team is wearing your colors, which I get in
the NFL actually is trends through marketing departments. Back in the day, home wore white, visiting wore dark. Okay. And then over the years, the home team's been allowed, and I forget the deadline, the week of a game, that they have to submit to the opposing team. We're going to wear X, because then the other team has to pack the opposite, right? So you're just letting the equipment manager, the other team, know what gear to pack. So now you're mixing and matching. I'm going to wear our dark top with our white pants. I'm going to wear my dark pants with my white top. I'm going to wear a dark helmet with a white top and dark pants. I'm going to wear... You watch an NFL game now, and it's all mix and match.
It is, and that's because of college football.
And because they're trying to sell more jerseys and they're doing this, it's all coming out of the marketing department. But traditionally in all sports, home has been white, away has been dark. Well, baseball, it's not dark, it's grays, right?
Yeah, and in baseball it doesn't really matter. And in basketball in the NBA, I mean, they change their uniforms every couple of weeks anyway. So, right. But it just seems to me like, I mean, I'm a person that's at every home game for a team, and yet all the other teams kind of look the same because they're all wearing white when they come to town. It's just weird.
Well, it's funny you mention it because I was in the hallway last night. I was at Jobbing.com Arena, and I was in the hallway when the Wild were coming out of their locker room for warm-ups. And I'm like, man, those white jerseys look sweet. And I'm like,
hockey has the best jerseys.
And I'm like, what? Our team's not wearing white.
Yeah.
I had that thought just for that when I saw them, and I'm like, we should be wearing white. We're at home.
See, you're almost the opposite of me. I want to see the full color. Like, I want to see Minnesota's green well, maybe not Minnesota, but I want to see some of these other teams' full color jerseys, you know?
No, I agree with you. I'm 100% with you on that.
It was a great point for me to throw in when we're trying to speed through news and notes. Just a little 5-minute aside. Sean Avery, Martin Brodeur, we want to touch this at all?
Yeah, got to touch it. Because Sean Avery's the best.
Well, these two obviously didn't like each other when they played, or when Avery played. Brodeur obviously is still playing. So you can take it from here, Doug, because I think you have the exact quotes over there.
I have the quotes. You set up, then I'll give you the quotes.
Okay, so Sean Avery was on Dancing with the Stars
And lost.
and lost.
So he's not even
Quickly.
He's not even dancing anymore.
No,
he's not playing hockey. He's not dancing.
There's just the Stars.
Right.
That's all there is, and that's not Sean Avery with them. So he loses Martin Brodeur. I don't know what the
And Sean Avery would have been the perfect guy to be in the Metro division.
Wow. And I don't think he would take
The
offense
Avery
to that.
division.
Yeah, that's what they should have called it. I would have thought he would have gone far on Dancing with the Stars, actually. Like usually,
Wait, what are you trying to say?
well, the athletes that they have on that show usually have success.
Okay.
I guess he wasn't the most agile hockey player. That wasn't
Sean
his
Avery,
game.
no.
They should have had him and Brodeur. If Brodeur was there, Avery could have done.
Well,
the dance
Avery
in front
did
of him.
dance with,
Yeah,
right?
There you go. So he's out. Brodeur says that something along the lines of how embarrassing for him. He found a new way to embarrass himself, or something. I don't know what the exact wording was from Brodeur, but
So in the year 2014, what do you do when somebody makes a statement like that?
well, I would go to Twitter. And
Yeah,
if things
go
went
to
bad,
Twitter, that's right.
I would just say somebody hacked my account.
And right. So Sean Avery sends out a couple of tweets towards Martin Brodeur, and he had a very affectionate name for Martin Brodeur. He hashtag Fatso.
That's rude.
So he sends out a tweet. Woke up beside a hashtag supermodel to hear news that hashtag Fatso made a comment.
Unnecessary use of hashtags, by the way.
At Dancing ABC equals thousands of dollars for charity. That was that one. And then he followed up with...
He fit a lot into 140 characters there.
Yeah.
He really did.
And
I
then
love the shot there at the end. I'm doing this for charity.
Right. And then he follows it up with, embarrassing is when you sleep with the hashtag nanny and get caught.
Hashtag nanny.
Get caught, smiley face.
People understand, first of all, that's extremely rude. Second of all, when you put the hashtag next to something, that is so you can click on it and search what other people have said about that.
Right.
So if you click on nanny, like, what are you bringing up? You're not. It doesn't make any sense. You don't hashtag it.
Well, a couple of maybe rich guys that... Probably Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I see.
Hashtag Nagy. His name would come up,
Okay,
right?
So, once again, Sean Avery's right and I am wrong. Dan Bilesma, not the same story at all. Wants replay. At least
Hashtag video
considered.
replay.
Hashtag video replay. See, that would at least make sense. Wants it considered on goalie interference calls.
I'm slowly becoming a non-video replay fan.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it slows the game down. It's unnecessary, especially for goalie interference. I mean, really, we have to stop and look. Just because Mr. Bilsma's goalie might not be playing very well in the playoffs.
All right, easy over there.
I think it's a waste of time.
I hear what you're saying. That was my first reaction.
I
too.
watched a video replay in the Final Four. Well, it wasn't the Final Four, but in the NCAA tournament last night.
Of basketball.
Dude,
Not the same thing. That took
they
8
took
minutes.
20 minutes to make a decision.
That's basketball. And they made the wrong decision. But that's basketball.
I'm like, are you kidding me?
Were they?
Not only did they take 6 hours to make a decision, they made the wrong decision.
It goes up every time you tell the story. They took a week and a half. Yeah, they did make the wrong decision, but that's not hockey. And so my first reaction anytime I see let's add more replay is exactly what you just said. Like, I don't want to slow the game down. But
So is it goalie interference if I'm a defenseman and I push a player and he falls into the goalie?
Well, you would have to have very clear lines of what you're looking for, and you enter a
Just like the
slippery slope.
interference rule, right? Just clear, defined lines.
Yeah, it's hard to clearly define this one. You go down a slippery slope when you're reviewing penalty calls.
I agree.
So this specific one, I completely see where Bilesman's coming from because you're having goals waved off, and we've seen goals waved off this season that shouldn't have been waved off.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that, but it does slow the game down. But I don't know how much this one particular rule would slow the game down because how many goalie interference reviews would you see over the course of the season? Maybe 8 to 10. But the problem I have is the
No,
door it
because
opens.
coaches are going to start using it. If they know it's there, they're going to use it. And what are we going to do? Throw a red flag onto the ice? I want to use my review.
We've incorporated every sport into this show. This is like the hockey and other sports podcast. My problem is it's sort of like the gateway penalty or the gateway review. I just see us 10 years from now being like, I feel like he held him. I want to review.
I want that interference call reviewed.
Yeah. So
I want that high stick reviewed.
I
I want that broken stick. He only took half a step. He let go of it.
That's how Ryan O'Reilly got his penalty minute streak.
I think that's a slippery slope, and I don't think the GMs will. The coach might want it, but I don't. See, I think what a lot of things are happening, though, and I've noticed it particularly in Phoenix because I live here, guys are crashing in the net a lot harder than they used to.
Yeah.
A lot of goalies are getting bumped, and there's a lot of contact and stuff. But if you're a defenseman, do your job. Don't let the guy near your net.
Phoenix just lost their starting goalie because a player landed on him in the crease.
Correct.
So,
but was that goalie interference? I don't think so.
It wasn't called.
But it was bodies in front. You're on blades. I mean, we play the game. He's lost his balance and he fell on Mike.
Yeah, and you are getting hit in front of the net.
You are getting hit in front of the net. So, I mean, yeah, that's a slippery slope.
Now, good news for Phoenix. Sounds like Mike Smith will ideally play again before the end of the regular season. And if they make the playoffs, they need him.
Phoenix management's got to be very happy with that news.
And they got to be happy with the way Thomas Greiss has played as the fill-in. But there's been a lot of injuries around the league lately. Matt Duchene, did you see this one? Jamie McGinn hits his own player, and now Matt Duchene's getting his knee checked out. That's an issue for Colorado, which is why I don't necessarily, as you said, smell upset over Chicago in the first round.
Oh, it's there. I smell it.
Well, it might have to be there without Matt Duchene. That wouldn't be good.
Scratch and sniff.
That's extremely loud in my ear, that's for sure. So hopefully he's okay, because he's been the spark plug for that team.
No, he'll be fine.
Oh, okay. Dr. Cannon. Never mind that. I don't even know why I brought that up. Jerome McGinley.
Paging Dr. Cannon.
That's the scary, scary thought. 30 goals now in the season for Jerome.
What a season. Here's the kicker. Come on. You and I have talked about this off air.
From the start of the season.
From the very beginning. He got picked up for what?
$1.8 million.
Unbelievable.
Now he's got a ton of incentives that are kicking in. He's probably going to make closer to $4 million this year.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there.
All right.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing. There's players out there making $6 million that aren't doing near what Iginla's doing.
I think more contracts should be incentive based.
I like it. I'm shocked that Iginla had to sign an incentive based contract. I'm shocked that he scores 30 goals, and the narrative from everybody is, what a bounce back year from Iginla. He still has a little bit left. He was good last year. He was good the year before. He's 36.
Right.
He's 6 years younger than Jaromir Jagr, who's still good.
Right.
Jerome McGinley's not done.
Well, he's got a long, long way to go. And with the talent that he has and the game that he plays, what a steal for Boston.
He's their leading goal scorer.
But what a steal.
Yes.
I mean, even with paying the incentives, what a steal.
The rich get richer.
Yes.
In this case, being Boston.
Being
not
Boston,
Iginla.
yes.
Okay, final note.
Okay.
New York Islanders maybe considering selling their team? Maybe.
There was talk that Mr. Wong was going to put the team up for sale.
Or at
Which
least
I'm
had
confused.
discussions.
And had discussions, but I'm confused. I get confused often, but I'm confused about this.
Yeah, I'm not even phased at this point. Wait, is this about the number 35?
No. He spent so much time getting his new arena and energy, and I can only imagine thousands of lawyers' fees filing, blueprints and just to get it to that point, and now he wants to turn around and sell the team.
Yeah, they're just one of those teams that can't make any sense of what they're doing. Do you think he'll sell them for a second-round draft pick?
I don't know, man. I mean,
because that's what they did with Thomas Vanek.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
And Matt Molson, and I mean, the list goes on, but I mean, Mr. Wong needs to take a look at his front office.
The Islanders that's got to be so frustrating to be a fan of that team right now because they have and had more pieces in place.
Yeah.
And you still have Tavares, so you're still kind of okay. But
I coach with a guy that comes from Long Island, and he's a diehard Islanders fan.
And they are not a patient folk.
And he was ecstatic at the start of this season.
He should have been.
He was very, very happy.
I'm not an Islanders
I wish
fan.
I could describe his face the day he came to the rink.
I was just excited to watch the Islanders this year.
And the trade was made.
Have you talked to him since the second trade was made?
No.
It's probably a good move.
Yeah.
That's it for episode 35. Join us next week as we hit the final week of the regular season and update the Maple Leafs losing streak.
Wow. And we also would like to talk about the Frozen Four next week, but we'll have to wait until later in April for that.
Plus whatever else happens in the next 7 days, however bitter Doug's going to be in the next 7 days. Thanks for listening to the Hockey Podcast.